Hey, y'all, it's Letitia with Lighten Up for Letitia, and we're just going to jump right in with our next review and recap of Tyler Perry's Beauty in Black Season 2. This is episode 3, labeled Blaze of Beauty. So, child, it's time for flower bringing and slow singing. We see Angel laying on the ground while Horace calls Jules to see if he was able to stop it, and looks like, sadly, that is not the case. But Horace was wondering, like, why in the world who arrested him, and why didn't you tell me that he got arrested? So Jules was saying, he hemming and hawing. So Horace asked him, are you able to secure the operation, whatever this operation is? And he was like, I have no more faith in you, Jules, and you are going to live to regret this, child. Everything is falling apart for Jules right now. So speaking of Jules, he went to go see Mallory, and she asked him right off front if Roy was involved. He tries to act like he doesn't know what she's talking about, but she's talking about all the stuff with the money laundering and all the club stuff. Was Roy involved in that? I know all about the trafficking with Calvin and Jillian and even Kimmie. He's like, the less you know, the better. But she is protecting Felicia. She said, well, she doesn't want Felicia to be touched because that's what she's using for some information. Now, as far as Horace, he's still laid up in the hospital bed, and Norman comes to visit him. And they have a little chat. I think that Norman was trying to, I thought it was going to be like a loving, brotherly event, but Horace is still very bitter. So Norman starts pouring out his heart, talking about the fact that their father loved Horace more, and that he took the rap for him when they were kids. Whenever Horace would get in trouble, Norman would take the rap for it. And he's like, why do we keep fighting? We're brothers. But Horace is not trying to hear that, child, because he was like, well, what about that affair? And my question is, what about those boys being your kids, Norman? Because I don't care what y'all say, I still think that those kids belong to Norman. He said, what about you taking the company from me? Now, Norman had to speak up like, now, hold up now. You the one tried to take the company from me, and I had to sue you in order to get it back. So, he was like, why are you trying to always hold things over my head? This is Horace asking. And he also, he confirmed for Norman. He was like, yep, Daddy hated you, and I hate you too. And you evil, I'm evil, and it's up and it's stuck, basically. He is not playing with Norman. He don't care. And Norman was like, well, I thought you'd be different since you sitting here sick. He said, I know all about you and Jules and all your felonious dealings and stuff. He said, your shares, Norman, are as good as gone. And then he begins this diabolical, evil tail coughing laugh that he has, and he's out there yelling at Norman as Norman is leaving. I got your ass. I got your ass. It was so diabolical and evil. Moving on. Now, Varney gets a call from Charles, trying to reassure him that he will handle the situation with Roy. And Varney was like, I'll just deal with Roy myself. So, and then he goes on to confess his love for Charles. And I don't know why he keeps falling for this, because Charles does not care. And then Mallory walks in on him to check on him and everything. And so, he's sitting there, looking over the wheel. And she said, listen, I need you to take me out to dinner. We'll talk about that dinner later. Okay, now back at the mansion, Rain is dressed to impress. She's ready to go to the club. Anyway, but she continues to tell Kimmie that she needs to relax. But Kimmie can't relax, and she's like, listen, their mother, her and Sylvie's mother, never even called to check on Sylvie, and she knows that Sylvie is missing. And she wants Rain to help convince Sylvie to get up out of here. I'm like, what? Why do you want her to leave that? Well, apparently Sylvie got an early she passed the early entrance test for college, and so Kimmie wants her to go off to college and to get up out of this situation because she still is not very trusting of what is going on. And meanwhile, Rain is still here with her hood girl mentality and talking about she wants to make her own money. She don't want to take that $500,000 that Kimmie gave her. She wants the club. She wants to make her own money. She wants to run the club. She says she knows how to do it. I was like, Lord have mercy. I'm like, why does she even want to go back there? Such a place of such trauma and drama that they had going on, but she wants to go back and run it. Anyway, Roy is at home smoking some puff pass, and he does indeed pass it to Charles. Charles walks in, and he gets to asking Charles how long this been going on with you and Varney. Now I'm like, why do you need to know all that? None of your business. But here go Charles, sexy, ain't it? And I think the Roy do think it is. I think he thinks it's very sexy. But anyway, he passed this thing to Charles, and when Charles went to go pass it back, he was like, no, I don't know, because I don't know where your mouth been. And so Charles, comes back at him like, listen, so you can be out here banging all these women with your married self, but I can't bang one dude? He like, later for that, Charles. Charles said later for that, Roy. The reason why he came was because he was telling him to back off of Varney. Here go Roy. Oh, you in love? And Charles is like, no, I'm trying to protect you. I'm like, y'all think he all docile, but listen, we are bound by this will to not hurt each other and not unalive each other. He's like, but he's not, and Varney has a mean streak, and I'm trying to warn you. So then Jules meets with Norman in some back alley type deal, whatever, to tell him that Horace knows everything. And of course, Norman knows this already, but he was like, Harold has to go, and he's going to go ahead and take care of it. Now, of course, Jules is like, listen, I've been trying to tell you, you don't need to get your hands dirty. Don't do anything. But he was like, no, he got to go. He said, Harold is a simple person, and he tells his wife everything. So he going to have to take out. So he said the liabilities must go. And Jules was like, just let me handle it, because you don't know how to do it quietly. You do everything loud and messy, and we know that that's the truth, and it'll be the truth later on. Moving on. So Raina's talking to Alex all crazy. She wants him to take her to the club. And Sylvie tells Kimmie that their marriage is all over the internet. And Horace called and needs her to come out to the hospital. And Sylvie tells him, now he is like tired. He don't really want to talk. He just want to tell Kimmie something very quickly. But Sylvie insists on getting on the phone. So she gets on the phone and she tells him about this place that treats cancer. And it's in Thailand. And they also have a place in Italy. So he does take the information. Now, Mallory brings up the fact that Varney is dealing with Charles. They go out to dinner, and she recalled the fact that, remember, she tried to sleep with Varney, and Varney didn't want to sleep with her, but she also remembered when Varney had a key to Charles's house when they thought Charles was gone. And so she put the two and two together, like, she said, boy, I don't know why you just keep trying to deny it. Just be gay. He was like, I can't just be gay because your father-in-law is homophobic, and I think your husband's going to go around trying to tell everybody. And Mallory was like, it's definitely what he's going to be doing. He definitely going to be trying to tell everybody. But how you deal with the devil is to be a bigger devil. So it looks like they're going to be friends. Varney and Mallory going to be kiki buddies, it looks like. So then Olivia, who is talking loud as I don't know what in the restaurant, comes over to them. She is drunk as a skunk and making a scene, okay? Now, meanwhile, Harold is having dinner with his wife, and Norman shows up. And this can't be good. He looking all menacing and talking all slow and everything. So Horace, of course, who's always nervous, Harold, who's always nervous, told Norman that he didn't say anything to anybody. But, he always denying and lying, because Norman already knows that Harold told Horace all of the information. But Norman wants to know if there's a paper trail, and he is adamant that there is no paper trail. And he was like, listen, it's not about who you trust. This is Norman talking. It's about who you trust. It's not about who I trust. It's about who you trust. So he's making a reference to the fact that I know that your wife knows what's going on, and something's going to have to be done with that. And Harold is like, no, he swears that his wife doesn't know anything, but y'all, he stay lying. So anyway, Alex is taking Rain to the club. He's like, why do you even want to go back to the club? He wants to help her and the rest of them get out of this life. And this is where it is revealed that Alex owes Jules $200,000. So you know how Jules is. He be racking up all the dollars on them. So supposedly that's the amount that Alex owes. Now Traxon ends up calling, and he starts to ask where Dega's whereabouts are for Rain. And he revealed in that same conversation that Angel is unalive, and he got that call from Horace, and that's the reason why he went to go take care of Angel. That is Traxon talking. Rain overhears the conversation, and child, you already know what's going to happen next. Meanwhile, child, Angel is alive, y'all, and he busts up in Yolanda's door looking for his baby. And he's trying to tell her that they have to get out of there, but she is not listening. She is hollering and screaming, "You broke my door, get out. No, I'm not listening to nothing, blah, 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 blah." She's doing too much. He's trying to get them out of there because he knows that Jules is coming for them. She is so annoying. I promise you he is. But he tried to warn her, and finally he just ended up leaving. Now, Norman, like I said, he was sitting there, eating these people's food, knowing he has sinister intentions, right? And Harold's wife was showing hella hospitality while she was there. But Harold was sitting there nervous as usual, as he should be as well. And so finally, Norman decides to leave after breaking bread with them. And he leaves out, thanks them for their hospitality. He leaves. So you think you could take a deep breath at this point. But the next thing you know, his wife brings in this box that Norman left behind. And what's in the box? Child, it went kaboom. So the whole house went up in flames. Didn't Jules just tell him not to be messy with this? Of course, he takes them both out. Moving on. And that is how the episode ends. Child. So we know Angel is alive, but Judge Harold and his wife are no longer. May they rest. Now, episode 4 is called The Next Chapter. And now here we are at the club. Child, Andy is at the door and he is charging $30 a head for the club. Okay. And this man comes up claiming to be Delinda's son. I'm like, Delinda's son? Anyway, he needs to get in there. So Traxon has to come over there. He said, "Don't you remember me?" He said, "No, not really." But he's like, "I'm Delinda's son." He was like, yeah. But you're going to need to come back in the daytime. Talking about he need to get into the office to get some papers. And they had to escort his belligerent tail out and tell him. And he's yelling that he's going to sue them. And he wants to sell the club and all that sort of thing. So moving on with that. Then we get introduced to these two new young dancers. One is Young Thing, and I forgot what the dude's name is, but he is trying to console her because she's like, "I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to go out there and dance." And he's just trying to tell her. It's kind of like the Kimmie and Angel 2.0 thing, where this is the next crop of kids coming in, and he's trying to console her like it's going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. And then we see Dusty Dustin again. Child, he stops Andy because he spots Charles out there. And there he goes, scheming to rob Charles again. But he lets Andy in on this plan now. Remember, Andy was the driver, was supposed to be driver for Mallory, but he is a police officer that is now assigned to the club. So they replaced Alex with Andy. Now, Dustin goes to approach Charles with an offer that he can't refuse because he brought that book of sugar, told him to meet him in the bathroom, and it was on since then. Of course, Charles gonna end up taking him home. Anyway, Rain and Alex arrive at that point, and Rain, oh Lord, why did she call Kimmie to tell her about Angel? Now, she could have just waited until she got home. But you're going to tell her and then tell her after the fact, don't panic. Plus, you don't have the full story anyway. But of course, Kimmie don't give a care. She flies off the handle as usual. She ready to go. She going off. She talking about, we got to get out of here. And he don't give a damn about us. If he loved Angel, and if he don't give a damn about Angel, then he don't give a damn about us. And we got to get out of here. But Rain was begging her, well, just wait till I get back to the house. She said, you need to go. You need to hurry up and get here or whatever. Because she was ready to go. She was about to go wake up Sylvie, pack up some stuff, and get up out of there. So finally, she just tells Alex, let's go. Let's get back to the house. Now, in the hospital, the doctor is telling Horace that at this point, it's only a matter of time because things have progressed in his body and there's nothing else that they can do. He finally says that he finally wants to live now because, he wants to see his revenge play out pretty much. And he brings up the information that Sylvie told him about and that she gave him. And the doctor just started chuckling because she's like, listen, this is the stuff we tried to tell you about with you earlier, but you wasn't trying to hear what we were saying. So she said there's one actually closer. It's closer for you to go to Italy, but it's still going to be a long flight. And he was like, don't worry about that because I got a plane. Of course he does. Now, Kimmie goes into Sylvie's bedroom, but sees her sleeping peacefully. So she's feeling a little bit guilty about it. And she called Rain to find out what her ETA was about to get back to the house. So Rain wants to ask Alex about how to go about getting some keys and one of the cars so they can get up out of there. And Alex is trying to show his loyalty, so he tells her how to do so. But he does mention the fact that it's heavily guarded, basically, and that they're not going to just get out scot-free. There's going to be people following them, and they're going to get stopped on the road and that sort of thing. But so she asked, well, then why did Horace give the word for Angel? And he said he doesn't know, but he'll try to find out from Traxon. Called Traxon, went straight to voicemail. Now, Kimmie wakes up Sylvie and says that they have to go at this point because it's not safe. And Sylvie doesn't believe for one moment, though, that Horace is going to hurt them. And she refuses to move, and she's demanding the truth. So Kimmie gets upset and tells her everything. I mean, everything. How the mama kicked her out, how she got caught up with Rain and Jules, and Angel, how Jules started to pimp them and they were stripping, participating in prostitution, how she started working for Roy, the whole Horace and Angel relationship thing, and his whole scheme to take the company from Roy and Charles. And I mean, all this word vomit, she's telling her everything. I'm like, even though she wanted to know the truth, she's still a young girl. She's still a minor. She don't need to know all that information. Of course, it's overwhelming. She was like, but nah, you want to know the truth, so grow up, get the truth or whatever. And she told Sylvie that Horace had Angel unalive. And Sylvie is so shocked. So she told her to go ahead and pack so they can get going. Now, Olivia is hollering and being so belligerent in this restaurant, ranting about Mallory making fun of her age, calling her fake, calling her a bitch, and then she was berating the YN that she was with, because you know Olivia keep her a YN around, okay? Anyway, she tells Varney to wait for her because he is going to take her home, and she questions him about the fact that he lives downtown, but he going to take Mallory all the way home in Indiana. You know, so she accuses them of messing around. Child. We know they ain't messing around. Anyway, Jules is at the scene of Harold's house burning, and he calls Traxon about Delinda. No, Traxon calls him and tells him about Delinda's son. He gonna have the nerve to say to him, what is that raggedy bitch doing with a Will? Really, Jules? He has like absolutely no respect for women at all whatsoever. Anyway, he tells Traxon that he's proving to be a really good soldier, but to go ahead and look into that son of hers because, you know, can't nothing jeopardize their operation. Now, he then called Norman and told him that this is indeed a mess that he made, and told him again about getting his hands dirty. And so he says, we better hope that this cleans our plate of any wrongdoing. They think this is going to erase all of their wrongdoing. And maybe it was because maybe all the paper trail, whatever, got burnt up in the house with Harold. I don't know. But also, Jules is told that Delinda's son is looking to sell the club. That'll be interesting. Now, back at Yolanda's, her brother comes in and tells her about the fact that Angel is unalive. She gets hysterical, and he tells her that they need to get out of there because they might be coming for them. Even though Angel tried to tell you that earlier today, girl. Anyway, and by the way, we ain't seen that baby, who I don't even think belongs to Angel. But that's just me. Moving on. Back at the hospital, Horace wakes up to Angel sitting there. And he thinks he's unalive. He thinks he is in heaven and he's seeing an actual angel at this point. And he apologized to him for getting him taken out. And Angel's like, what kind of drugs you on? He said, no. He said, what happened? What's today? Then because he had already made this admission that he had put out the hit for him. So Angel like, what? You tried to get me unalive? So then Harold just like, huh? What? Huh? What you say? The whole scene was a hot mess. Anyway, Angel tries to leave, but Harold tried to tell him, but Horace tried to tell him, listen, if you go out there, they will take you out for real. So you need to just stay here and be safe with me. Now, Angel explains that the reason why he's there, though, is because even though he did get popped at, someone fell on him. And so he was able to, but he was playing unalive like a mug because eyes was open. And I said, well, dang. So he tells Horace that Jules had threatened to take out his whole family. And of course, Harold said that he will handle it. Now, they take Miss Olivia home with her drunk self. She talking about, oh, this car is nice. We pay you too much. And he claims, oh, well, I have other clients. Child, we can't tell you got other clients. Because you always sniffing up Charles behind. You only work with the Belleries. We've only seen you work with the Belleries. We haven't even seen you in your own office nowhere. Anyway, so she randomly brings up Charles and was like, I wish my Charles was as strong as you, Varney, whatever. I don't know what turned him gay. So Mallory's like trying to cut the conversation anyway. Well, how's the church doing? Why you playing? Why you trying to talk about somebody else? But Olivia gets offended and starts talking crazy to Mallory like she been the whole time. They finally take her home, drop her off. She fumbling with the keys. Finally, Varney was able to get the right key, open the door. And she was like, does your key open any other doors? I think she was alluding to the fact that he has a key to Charles as well. I think she knows what's going on with Charles and Varney. So anyway, Varney walks her in and she tries to seduce him, asking him about his height and if that goes for everything else that's on him. Girl, she's looking for another YN. Anyway, but she is barking up the wrong tree and we know this. Now Mallory was like, what is taking up so long? So she goes in and says, Miss Olivia, good night, and we are leaving. Miss Olivia was like, I know who you are, Mallory. I know who you are, Mallory. So they leave and she takes in another bottle to the head, child. Anyway, back at the mansion, Sylvie is still protesting when Rain gets there, and Kimmie just will not calm down. She's yelling about everything. She's yelled that she had told Sylvie everything, and Rain tries to check on Kimmie, but try to check on Sylvie, but Kimmie is ready to go. They demanded to know what Alex said, but she was like, okay, you need to calm down, but we can get a car. Next thing you know, they're going outside trying to get up in this truck, whatever. And of course, Whitman, who's the head of security, comes out. Oh, ma'am, where are you going? Whatever. She said, oh, just a girl's trip. She's like, well, let me get Alex. Alex can take you. She was like, no, open that gate or I'm driving through it. He was like, ma'am, it's solid iron. But she started hollering at him, better open up the gate because I'm about to run through, whatever. So they jump in the car. They start driving on this private road, going fast and erratic as hell. It was ridiculous. Ends up driving into a ditch where their wheels is spinning. Now she's still trying to get out, trying to pull back and everything. The wheels just spinning. And they thinking at this point, oh my gosh, they're going to try to get us. They're going to try to unalive us and everything. Then we all of a sudden see a shadow. And it's Horace who says, going somewhere, Kimmie. And then it went off, y'all. I'm thinking, girl, what are you doing? Do you really think you was about to drive off into the sunset with this man's stuff? If you made it this far, I appreciate it. And don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you check out our live recaps with the group. Vacay JTV, Tika Deshawn, All Things Ruthless, Monique 69 Ways, and The Lawrence Report. And until next time, holla.